Hey there, you looking kinda cute. Don't forget to subscribe and check out my other socials for more. Enjoy. The acrid smell of ozone hung in the air, a constant reminder of the world that once was. Christine blinked awake. Consciousness slowly returned. Panic set in. This wasn't her body. This wasn't her time. Memories flooded back. A life as Chris, a man from the distant past. But now, impossibly, she found herself reborn into a female form centuries later. The year 3086, if the glowing numbers on the wall were to be believed. Christine sat up with a groan, taking in her new reality. The room was sparse and utilitarian, all sleek metals and polymers, a far cry from the cozy apartment he had known before. "Good morning, Citizen 8675309, a robotic voice chimed. "Please prepare yourself for daily duties." She flinched at the intrusion, then noticed a neat pile of clothing on a nearby shelf. With trembling hands, Christine picked up the unfamiliar garments. A silvery bodysuit that seemed to shimmer and shift colors as it moved. Some kind of thin, flexible armor, perhaps? Pulling it on was a challenge, the material clinging to curves she wasn't used to having. Christine fumbled with the fastenings, cursing under her breath. Once dressed, she caught sight of herself in a reflective panel on the wall. The face staring back was undeniably feminine, with high cheekbones and full lips. But the eyes, those were the same. A stranger, yet hauntingly familiar. Her new auburn hair fell in waves past her shoulders. "Citizen, you have not applied your daily cosmetic enhancements," the AI voice intoned. "This is a violation of appearance codes." Christine's brow furrowed. Cosmetic enhancements? A panel slid open, revealing an array of unfamiliar devices and substances. Some seemed to be high-tech versions of makeup she vaguely recalled from her past life. Others were completely alien. With a sigh, she grabbed what appeared to be some kind of applicator and got to work. The cosmetics seemed to know where they belonged, guiding her untrained hand. When she finished, her reflection showed a face transformed, skin flawless and glowing, eyes enhanced to an unnatural vibrancy. "Much better, citizen," the AI approved. "You may now proceed to your assigned sector." The door slid open with a hiss, revealing a corridor bathed in the same harsh light as her quarters. Christine stepped out hesitantly, nearly losing her balance. The bodysuit's boots had a slight heel she wasn't accustomed to. As she made her way down the hall, other citizens emerged from identical rooms. All wore variations of the same bodysuit, though colors and styles varied slightly. Christine noticed that while some were clearly male or female, others seemed to defy easy categorization. "Hey there, newbie!" a voice called out. Christine turned to see a tall, athletic woman with close-cropped blue hair grinning at her. "First day on the job?" Yes, I suppose so," Christine stammered. The woman laughed, a surprisingly warm sound in the sterile environment. "Don't worry, we all go through it. I'm Zara. Come on, I'll show you the ropes." Grateful for the assistance, Christine fell into step beside her new acquaintance. As they walked, Zara kept up a steady stream of chatter. "So, what's your speciality? Wait, let me guess. With those delicate hands, you must be in nanotech engineering, right?" Christine looked down at her slender fingers, realizing she had no idea what skills this new body possessed. "Actually, I'm not sure," she admitted. Zara raised an eyebrow. "Memory gaps, huh? Rough process, that reincarnation. Don't worry, it'll come back to you. In the meantime, stick with me." They emerged into a vast atrium, its ceiling so high it disappeared into mist. Hundreds of citizens milled about, some heading purposefully to their destinations, while others congregated in small groups. "Welcome to Central Hub," Zara announced. "Pretty much everything happens here. Work assignments, recreation, sustenance, distribution. Speaking of which, you look like you could use a boost. Come on." She led Christine to a row of strange machines lining one wall. Citizens stood before them, receiving small, glowing capsules that they swallowed without hesitation. "Daily nutrient infusion," Zara explained. specially calibrated for each citizen's needs. Just put your hand on the scanner." Christine complied, trying to hide her discomfort as the machine hummed and whirred. A moment later, a small hatch opened, dispensing 2 iridescent pills. "Down the hatch," Zara encouraged. Hesitantly, Christine placed the capsules on her tongue. They dissolved instantly, flooding her mouth with a burst of flavors she couldn't begin to describe. Energy surged through her body, chasing away the lingering fog of disorientation. "Wow," she breathed. "That's intense." Zara chuckled. "You get used to it. Now, let's see about getting you assigned. Follow me." They approached a sleek console embedded in a nearby wall. Zara tapped a few icons, then gestured for Christine to step forward. "Just place your palm on the screen," she instructed. "The system will scan your genetic profile and match you with suitable work." Christine did as she was told, trying to quell the nervous fluttering in her stomach. The screen flickered, displaying a rapid succession of images and text too fast to follow. Finally, it settled on a single word: archivist. Zara whistled. Well, well, looks like we've got ourselves a history buff. That's a pretty cushy gig, if you ask me. Come on, I'll take you to the archives." As they made their way through the winding corridors of the complex, Christine's mind raced. An archivist? Perhaps that made sense, given her unique perspective as someone from the distant past. But how much of that knowledge remained? And how much had been lost in the transition to this new form? The archives proved to be a cavernous chamber filled with row upon row of glowing data crystals. Holographic displays flickered between the stacks, showing snippets of recorded history. An elderly man with a long white beard approached them, his eyes twinkling with interest. "Ah, you must be our new recruit. Welcome, welcome. I'm Thaddeus, head archivist, and you are—" "Christine," she supplied, shaking his offered hand. "Excellent, excellent. Well, Christine, we have quite the task ahead of us. The recent excavations in the ruins of old Chicago have uncovered a treasure trove of pre-war data. It's our job to sort through it all, separate fact from fiction, and piece together the true history of our world." Christine nodded, a spark of excitement cutting through her lingering confusion. This, at least, was something she could handle. "I'll leave you to it," Zara said with a wink. "See you at the end of shift, newbie." As Zara departed, Thaddeus led Christine deeper into the archives. "Now then," he said, "let's start you off with something simple. We've recovered fragments of entertainment media from the early 21st century. Your task is to analyze them for historical context and cultural significance." He gestures to a workstation where a holographic display sprang to life. Christine sat down, marveling at the intuitive interface. As she began to sift through the data, she found herself slipping into a familiar rhythm. This, at least, felt natural. Hours passed in a blur of information. Christine lost herself in the work, piecing together the puzzle of a world she once knew intimately. It was strange, viewing her own era through the lens of an archivist from the future. So much seemed quaint, even primitive. Yet there was a vibrancy to it all, a richness of experience that felt lacking in this sterile new world. "Impressive progress," Thaddeus remarked, peering over her shoulder. "You have quite the knack for this, my dear. Almost as if you lived through it yourself." He chuckled at his own joke. Christine forced a smile, her stomach churning. How much should she reveal? How much would they even believe? Before she could respond, a chime sounded throughout the archives. "End of shift," Thaddeus announced. "Time flies when you're having fun, eh? Go on, get some rest. I look forward to seeing what else you can uncover tomorrow." Exhausted but oddly exhilarated, Christine made her way back to the central hub. The space had transformed, now filled with citizens engaged in various leisure activities. Some played holographic games, while others conversed in small groups. "There you are," Zara's voice called out. Christine turned to see her new friend waving her over to a table. "Come on, join us. You look like you could use a drink." Christine approached hesitantly, noting the other occupants of the table. a burly man with cybernetic implants visible along his arms, and a willowy individual whose gender she couldn't quite determine. "Everyone, this is Christine, our newest archivist," Zara announced. "Christine, meet Brick and Ether." Murmured greetings were exchanged as Christine took a seat. A moment later, a hovering drone appeared, depositing glasses of softly glowing liquid before each of them. "Synthetic spirits," Brick explained, noticing Christine's questioning look. "All the buzz, none of the hangover. Bottoms up." Christine took a tentative sip, her eyes widening at the complex flavors that danced across her tongue. It was like nothing she had ever tasted before, yet somehow reminiscent of every favorite drink she'd ever had. As the evening wore on, Christine found herself relaxing, drawn into the easy camaraderie of her new acquaintances. They swapped stories of their daily lives, complained about work assignments, and speculated on the latest gossip from the upper levels of society. "So, Christine," Ether said, their voice a melodious blend of tones, "what's your story? Where were you before you joined us here in Central?" Christine froze, her mind racing. What could she say? How could she possibly explain the truth of her situation? I'm not entirely sure," she said slowly. "My memories from before are jumbled, fragmented." Sympathetic nods around the table. "Reincarnation scramble," Brick grunted. "Happens to the best of us. Give it time, it'll come back, or it won't, and you'll make new memories to replace the old ones." "Speaking of memories," Zara interjected, clearly trying to change the subject, "did you hear about the latest findings from the Mars colony? Apparently they've uncovered evidence of ancient microbial life." The conversation shifted, much to Christine's relief. She let the chatter wash over her, content for the moment to simply observe and absorb. This strange new world was slowly coming into focus, its rhythms and customs becoming clearer with each passing hour. As the night wore on, citizens began to drift away, returning to their quarters for rest. Christine bid farewell to her new friends, promising to meet them again the following evening. Back in her room, she peeled off the bodysuit with a sigh of relief. The AI voice reminded her to cleanse away the cosmetic enhancements, a process that left her feeling oddly vulnerable. Lying in bed, staring up at the cracked dome above, Christine's mind whirled with the events of the day. So much to process, so much to learn. And always the underlying current of discomfort in this unfamiliar body. Sleep, when it came, was fitful and filled with dreams of the world she had left behind. She saw faces of loved ones long dead, heard echoes of conversations from a lifetime ago. And through it all, a persistent question. Why? Why had she been brought to this time, this place, this form? Morning came too soon, the harsh light and insistent AI voice rousing her from uneasy slumber. Christine went through the motions of preparing for the day, her movements becoming slightly more assured as muscle memory began to take hold. In the archives, she dove back into her work with renewed focus. The fragments of the past became a lifeline, a connection to the world she had known. As she pieced together the events that had led to the Great War, a picture began to emerge of a society not so different from her own, torn apart by the same fears and divisions that had always plagued humanity. Days blended into weeks, a routine establishing itself. Work in the archives, evenings spent with her small circle of friends, nights haunted by dreams of what once was. Christine found herself settling into this new life, even as part of her railed against the very idea of acceptance. It was during one of their nightly gatherings that everything changed. The central hub was more crowded than usual, an air of nervous excitement permeating the space. "What's going on?" Christine asked as she joined her friends at their usual table. Ether leaned in, their eyes sparkling with barely contained glee. "Haven't you heard? They're opening up a new sector. Apparently, they've finally stabilized enough of the outer zone to expand the habitable area. There's talk of new job assignments, maybe even the chance to go topside." Christine's heart raced at the thought. In all her time here, she had yet to see the world beyond the confines of the underground complex. What would remain of the cities she had once known? How much had the war changed the very face of the planet? "When is this happening?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. "Announcements are supposed to go out tomorrow," Brick rumbled. "But you didn't hear it from me. Overheard some bigwigs talking about it while I was doing maintenance on the upper levels." The next day, the archives were abuzz with speculation. Work progress slowed to a crawl as everyone huddled around data terminals, waiting for news. Even Thaddeus seemed distracted, his usual scholarly focus replaced by an almost childlike excitement. When the announcement finally came, it was anticlimactic in its brevity. A simple message, flashing on every screen. "Sector 7 now open, new assignments to be distributed within 48 hours. Prepare for potential relocation." The archives erupted in a cacophony of voices, everyone talking at once. Thaddeus called for order, but his heart didn't seem to be in it. "Well," he said, a touch of wonder in his voice, "it seems we live in interesting times, my friends. Whatever comes, know that the work we do here is vital. We are the keepers of history, the bridge between what was and what will be." Christine nodded along with the others, but her mind was already racing ahead. A new sector, a chance to see the world beyond these walls. Perhaps, just perhaps, a clue to why she had been brought to this time and place. The next 2 days were a whirlwind of anticipation and preparation. Citizens scurried about, packing up personal belongings and speculating on what their new assignments might be. Christine found herself hoping against hope that she would be among those chosen to relocate. When the notifications finally came, the central hub became a scene of barely controlled chaos. Shouts of joy mingled with cries of disappointment as citizens learned their fates. Christine's hands shook as she accessed her personal data terminal. A moment of agonizing delay, and then the message appeared. "Citizen 8675309. Christine, you have been selected for reassignment to Sector 7. Report to Transport Hub Alpha at 0800 hours tomorrow for relocation. Your new duties will be as follows. Field archivist." A wave of emotion washed over her. Relief, excitement, and a touch of fear. This was it. A chance to see what had become of the world she once knew. That night, sleep eluded her entirely. Christine paced her small room, mind racing with possibilities. What would she find out there? How much had the war changed the very landscape of the planet? And always, the underlying question, why was she here? Morning came, and with it a flurry of activity. Christine donned a new bodysuit, this one sturdier and equipped with various technological enhancements she didn't fully understand. A small pack of supplies was issued, along with a personal data tablet loaded with information about her new assignment. At the transport hub, she found herself surrounded by a mix of familiar and unfamiliar faces. Zara was there, practically vibrating with excitement. Brick stood stoic as ever, but there was a glint in his eye that betrayed his anticipation. Ether, it seemed, had not been selected for the relocation. "Ready for this?" Zara asked, slinging an arm around Christine's shoulders. "As I'll ever be," Christine replied, trying to keep the tremor out of her voice. They boarded a sleek transport vehicle, unlike anything Christine had seen before. It hummed with barely contained energy, promising speed beyond imagination. As the doors sealed shut and the vehicle began to move, Christine closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and silently said goodbye to the underground world that had been her home these past weeks. Whatever lay ahead, she was determined to face it head-on. The journey to Sector 7 was a blur of motion and muffled sound. When the transport finally came to a stop and the doors hissed open, Christine found herself momentarily blinded by natural light, the first she had seen since awakening in this new world. As her eyes adjusted, she gasped. Before her stretched a landscape both familiar and utterly alien. The ruins of what must have once been a great city rose in the distance, its shattered skyscrapers now overgrown with strange luminescent vegetation. The sky above was a swirling mass of colors she had no names for, nothing like the blue expanse she remembered. "Welcome to Sector 7, a voice announced. "Please proceed to your assigned habitation units and await further instructions." Christine stepped out onto soil that seemed to shift and pulse beneath her feet. The air was thick with unfamiliar scents, some sweet, others acrid. In the distance, she could hear sounds that might have been wildlife, but like nothing she had ever encountered before. As she made her way towards the cluster of newly constructed buildings that would serve as their base of operations, Christine's mind whirled with questions. What secrets lay hidden in those overgrown ruins? What new forms of life had evolved in the centuries since the war? And most pressingly, what role was she meant to play in unraveling the mysteries of this brave new world? The next few days were a whirlwind of briefings, equipment checks, and preliminary surveys. Christine threw herself into the work, eager to explore this transformed world. Her team was tasked with venturing into the ruins, recovering any artifacts or data that might shed light on the final days before the war. It was on one such expedition that Christine made a discovery that would change everything. Deep within the bowels of a long-abandoned research facility, she uncovered a sealed chamber. Inside, perfectly preserved, was a computer system unlike anything she had seen in this new era. With trembling hands, she activated the ancient machine. The screen flickered to life, displaying a message that made her blood run cold. Project Lazarus. Temporal displacement and consciousness transfer. Subject, Christopher Wells. Status, success. Christine, no, Chris, stared at the screen in shock. Here, at last, was the answer to the question that had haunted her since awakening in this new body, this new time. She wasn't just a reincarnation or a copy. She was herself, plucked from the past and thrust into this strange future. As the full implications began to sink in, alarms blared throughout the facility. The screen before her flashed red, a new message appearing. "Warning, temporal anomaly detected. Prepare for extraction." The world around her began to shimmer and distort. Christine felt a pulling sensation as if her very atoms were being torn apart. She tried to cry out, but no sound emerged. In a blinding flash of light, the ruined lab vanished. Christine found herself floating in a void, formless and timeless. Voices echoed around her, too distant and distorted to make out clearly. Then, slowly, a new reality began to coalesce. She felt herself being pulled back together, molecules reassembling into a familiar form. With a gasp, Christine opened her eyes. She was back in her old bedroom, in her old body. The clock on the nightstand showed the date. Just one day after she had last remembered being Chris, had it all been a dream, a glimpse of a possible future? As she sat up, trying to make sense of what had happened, Christine noticed something on her desk that hadn't been there before. A small, glowing crystal, pulsing with an otherworldly light. Attached was a note, written in a hand both familiar and strange. "The future is not set. What you have seen is but one possibility. Use this knowledge wisely. The fate of worlds depends on the choices we make today." See. Christine picked up the crystal, feeling its warmth pulsing against her palm. In that moment, she knew with absolute certainty that her journey was far from over. The lines between past, present, and future had blurred, and she now stood at a crossroads of time itself. With a deep breath, she pocketed the crystal and stood up. Whatever challenges lay ahead, whatever strange futures might unfold, she was ready to face them. After all, she had already lived a lifetime in the span of a dream. What was one more adventure? As she stepped out into the familiar world of the present, Christine couldn't help but smile. The future was unwritten, full of possibilities, both wondrous and terrifying. And she, through some twist of fate or design, held the key to shaping it. The sun rose on a new day, bathing the world in golden light. To most, it was just another morning. But to Christine, it was the dawn of an extraordinary journey, one that spanned centuries, defied the laws of nature, and held the promise of reshaping the very fabric of reality itself. With each step, she felt the weight of worlds upon her shoulders. But she also felt a surge of determination, a fierce resolve to use her unique perspective to make a difference. The apocalyptic future she had witnessed was not inevitable. Armed with knowledge from both past and future, she had the power to change the course of history. As she walked down the familiar streets of her neighborhood, Christine's mind raced with plans and possibilities. She would need to be careful, strategic in how she used her knowledge. Too much change too quickly could have unforeseen consequences. But small actions, nudges in the right direction, could snowball into world-altering effects. First things first, she needed to understand more about the technology that had made her journey possible. The glowing crystal in her pocket held secrets she could barely begin to fathom. Somehow, she would need to find a way to unlock its potential without drawing unwanted attention. For now, though, she had a life to live, a job to go to, friends to meet, a world to interact with. And with every interaction, every decision, she would be shaping the future in ways both small and profound. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to check out my other socials if you want more wonderful content, early access, behind the scenes, and more. All links down below.